Whitetail deer are fascinating animals. Wildlife enthusiasts pursue deer with rifles, bows, cameras, and more. Their beauty and grace are well known and easily recognizable, but whitetails have other traits that aren't as well known, or at least not as understood by many who share our passion for them. Therefore, this video will cover several aspects of deer biology and behavior. Let's start with why a white tail. Whitetail deer are named for the color on the underside of their tail. However, the white coloring also includes the entire rump, and deer see very well in this area of the color spectrum. When a deer's tail is down in a relaxed position, it conceals the vast majority of white coloration. However, when alarmed, a raised tail provides a clear signal for other deer to see and a beacon to follow when fleeing from danger, especially in low light situations. This next behavior we see occurring during the summer, but they do this all year long. See how that deer just stomped its foot? He clearly is looking at something. The foot stomp is letting something know, I have seen you. I'm not sure exactly what you are, but I'm going to try to get you to move so I can see you again. And deer have a gland in between their hooves, the interdigital gland. By stomping, he is actually leaving scent there to let other deer that come in the area know, hey, I saw something here that I didn't like or I wasn't sure of. May not necessarily be danger, may not necessarily be a predator, but it was definitely something that got his attention. So he can advertise here to whatever he's looking at, as well to other deer that will come to that area in the near future after he leaves. Now that we just referenced this interdigital gland, let's talk about how deer use that. Take a look at this buck coming across this field. His head isn't up just looking around and running, is it? What is he doing? He is right down to the ground smelling. It's because, as I said, that gland, that interdigital gland between the front hooves, every step a deer takes, it's leaving a scent. Deer use this to follow each other. That's how they know which way on a trail deer went, so they're not running the wrong way. And in this case, we're into the fall of the year during the breeding season. A doe has come through here, and this buck is coming through exactly where she did across this field and down into the woods. And we know that because every step she took, she left a scent, and this buck is right on that trail, following her exactly, trying to catch up with her to see if she is ready to breed. So we just talked about a buck scent trailing a doe. Now take a look at this clip. He's no longer scent trailing because he sees her. So now he is following her visually. And as he's coming across her, we're into the fall of the year, we're into the rut. He is hoping that she is receptive to breed. They also now will call, you hear that grunt, that meh? He is grunting to her as a call, so it's a way that he can communicate, trying to catch up with her. And if you've watched this, a lot of people think that the urine from the doe is how that buck knows if she's ready to breed. Not true. And what you just saw there, a lot of times does will urinate to throw the bucks off their trail, knowing he will stop and smell it, give her a chance to get out of there. The way that we know that does are receptive is when they literally will stand to breed. At any point before that, they're going to continue to run, what she's doing, this buck's on the prowl, and this is why the rut is so magical and so fun to be able to see this deer behavior, because deer are all over the landscape and provide some incredible hunting opportunities as well as viewing opportunities if you're anywhere near where a deer is in heat. Cool footage here. So we just referenced a doe urinating and a buck checking that. What they will often do is, you see here this buck curl his lips. It's called lip curl or flaming. Many people think he is doing this to tell if that doe is in heat. That is not true. What he is actually doing is he will grab some of that urine or the aerosol around that urine and pump it into an organ at the top of his mouth. By curling those lips, it exposes the vomeronasal nasal organ. It's a little diamond-shaped organ right on the top of his mouth. It allows that aerosol to get into that and then go to his brain. The way we know that this is not how he tells if that doe is in heat is because that organ does not hook to a part of the brain that controls any part of that buck's behavior. What it does is it hooks to a part of the brain that actually keeps that deer in breeding readiness, meaning it keeps him physically fit to be able to breed when the time is right, but does not go to a part that actually controls behavior. So that is not how he tells if she is in heat or not. We know this by her standing. That's how we know. But all bucks will do this. We see this in other animals as well, in livestock and other things. But if you ever have a chance to see a deer inside of its mouth, very clear diamond-shaped organ, is what that is, and that is exactly what that buck is using that for. So a very cool and uncommonly seen rut-related behavior. This next behavior we're going to talk about is one of the primary ways that deer communicate, and that is through scrapes. Now, if you take a look at what this deer first is actually licking a branch above his head and rubbing his antlers on it, and now he's down in here pawing the ground. These are all very purposeful behaviors. The branch above is what we call a licking branch. He will lick it, he'll smell it, he'll mouth it, he may rub his preorbital gland on it. He is getting exactly the scent there that he wants. Then he goes and paws the ground underneath and exposes that dirt. He will then go ahead and leave knowing his scent is there, or he may urinate right into that scrape. Sometimes they urinate straight in it. Sometimes they will rub urinate, which means he rubs his tarsal glands, which are on the inside of his back legs together as he urinates. All of this is a way for him to leave his information, his calling card, his personal identity at that scrape, because these scrapes are visited by numerous other bucks and does in these areas. Coming in and checking who is in the area, how long have they been here, and be able to collect other information about these deer. And it's not just bucks leaving scent there. Does often can urinate in these as well, advertising their presence in the area. Now, bucks will use scrapes year-round, does will use scrapes year-round, but the behavior is much more enhanced during the fall breeding season. Great places to observe deer behavior, awesome places to hang a trail camera and see all the deer that are in the area and what they're up to. This next behavior is also a way that deer advertise themselves and communicate, and it's rubbing their antlers on trees. Now, bucks will rub their antlers on trees, poles, fence posts, or whatever is available to remove that velvet and advertise themselves via their forehead gland. Rubbing peaks during a pre-rut and is maintained at a high level throughout the breeding season. Dominant bucks may express social or physical superiority while advertising to does, and large mature bucks may rub large trees, and these rubs seem to be special signposts, which are revisited each year. And you know what? And if there are no large trees in the area, they'll even rub power line poles. This next clip, we actually get to see a couple behaviors. One is scraping, and take a look, this deer can't quite reach the licking branch, so he's actually getting up on his hind legs to get up there to where a prior deer has left some scent. Now he's pawing the ground underneath, scraping that away. If you take a look in the background, there's another buck just out of sight a little bit, where you can see his head doing the same thing. So the buck in front is making a scrape saying, hey, look at me, I'm advertising myself. The buck in back is as well, but if we follow kind of what happens here, you'll see some of this aggression of the guy in front start to change. He's feeling pretty good about himself, but suddenly, as the guy in back starts to come out a little bit, the guy in back is bigger. His antlers aren't necessarily bigger, but his body is larger, and he seems to be more dominant. So the guy in front suddenly is less interested now in advertising himself, and he starts to walk away a little bit. And if we follow this clip, the guy in back, as he gets out, will go to where the scrape was in front, smell that. So kind of nothing real serious here yet, but now watch as the bigger buck starts to approach the younger one. What happens is now behavior starts to change. You can see he will start to lay his ears back. This is an aggressive move. You can see his hair start to erect a little bit. They will do this to make themselves appear larger to other deer. And the whole time, look at that smaller buck in front. His ears are up, his hair is down, he doesn't want to look at him, he's looking away, he starts to walk away. He's doing everything to be like, hey, I have no interest in arguing with you, I'm not going to be aggressive at all. And the guy in the back makes himself look big to the point where he actually will start walking sideways. See, he is sidling up to that younger deer, letting him see how big he is in the body, and it's essentially telling him, hey, look how big I am, you do not want to mess with me. Fortunately for this smaller deer, he ends up walking away, which is good. If he would have chosen to stay, this then would have escalated to the next level of aggression between these deer, where they would literally start sparring, or maybe even getting into a big time knockdown, drag down fight. So I mentioned that in this last clip, this younger buck walks away. What would have happened if he didn't? Well, they could have escalated to sparring. And sparring is a behavior where two bucks will hook their antlers together and push against each other. Now, sparring typically occurs from just before velvet shedding and until just prior to the peak of the rut during the breeding season. Now, since bucks cannot see their own antlers, they will push against each other to compare and see how they match up with others. This helps them develop a well-established pecking order prior to the rut, And then often a subordinate buck will lick the face or the forehead gland of the dominant buck. He will know exactly who that is if he comes into contact with him during the rut. Now, as we watch this next clip though, what happens is if that goes past that, we actually get into a fight. So as the breeding season approaches, aggression levels elevate and bucks progress from sparring to fighting. Dominance fights typically occur during or just after the peak breeding season, and they generally occur between bucks that are 3.5 years of age and older. And the confrontation is typically over a doe. Now, these can be violent and vigorous confrontations, sometimes causing injury or to death to one or both of those bucks. Now, interestingly, fights are often between individuals that don't know each other and therefore did not have that opportunity to spar and establish their rank in the pecking order prior to the breeding season. This next behavior we're going to show you is the most aggressive call that deer will make. It's typically made by adult or mature bucks. It's usually in reference to another mature buck being in the area during the breeding season. This is the grunt snort wheeze that you just heard this deer do. It's that 20 years ago, almost no hunters ever got to hear this because there were so few mature bucks in the world. Today, we have better age structure through better deer management programs. We have better age structure on the buck segment of our population than we've had in at least the last 100 years, which means there's more older bucks on the landscape, which means you get to hear more of this behavior. More hunters today than ever before use this as a calling tactic to lure mature bucks within either bow or rifle range during the hunting season. But whether you ever get to actually see it or not, it's pretty cool to know that more deer are doing this. And if you do get to witness this is one of the absolute coolest deer behaviors you will ever get to see in the deer woods. Mother of the year. Fawns are born at approximately the 50-50 sex ratio, and whitetail fawns are hiders. After birth, they nurse and then hide alone. The doe sends them off to select their own bedding site, and in doing so, she ensures that a predator can't follow her scent to the fawn or the fawns. Fawns do have scent, that's how their mother identifies them, but they have less scent than adults, so it's more difficult for coyotes, bobcats, bears, or other predators to locate them. The mother will generally visit them 3 or 4 times per day to feed and nurse them, and she goes to the general area where she left them and calls. Fawns respond by standing and running to their mother. And after approximately 1 month, fawns will start spending much more of the day with their mother. But the feeding part, this is an interesting time as there's much more going on than simply an exchange of milk. During the first couple of weeks, fawns are unable to urinate or defecate on their own. This likely evolved as a strategy, at least partly, for anti-predation. And while a fawn is nursing, the doe will lick its genital region. This causes the fawn to urinate and defecate, and the doe then consumes the urine and feces to remove the scent from predatory noses and as a health precaution. Some researchers suggest this allows the doe to detect bacteria present in the fawn's body, which allows her to then develop antibodies to fight it, and she feeds those back to the fawns in subsequent nursings. How awesome is that? This next behavior appears as something very simple, and he's kind of looking around, but this also plays into saving themselves from predators. It's summertime, it's easy living, but there's still something trying to eat them every day. So what this guy has done is he has actually just finished eating. You see him, he looks around, he's finding a nice spot to bed. Now he's gonna bed in a very safe area. Deer are designed to consume a lot of food very quickly and then go hide while they digest it. Deer are a ruminant, which means they have 4 chambers in their stomach. So what he will do is once he's safe, he will regurgitate that food, chew it again till it's much smaller, swallow it, and then be able to digest it. This is one of the things that allows them to evade predators for literally about 4 million years. One of the reasons we have so many whitetails today and that they can adapt to so many different environments. So while it doesn't seem like a whole lot is going on here, he has picked a safe area to be able to bed, digest that food where he can both see what's going on as well as smell any predators that may be in the area. Staying in velvet, bucks generally remain in bachelor groups from the end of winter until just after velvet shedding in the fall. This is a great time of year to observe them. Testosterone levels are very low, so those bucks are buddies. They like to be together. They get all grouped up, and they are extremely viewable in farmers' fields or food plots. So this is a great time of year to be able to view these bachelor groups of bucks. Let's take a look at a doe here, and this behavior is very common for both bucks and does though. You can see her bob in her head. What she is doing has identified something is here in front of her, and she's trying to get it to move or trying to get a better visual image of what it is. Deer have a very long, thin pupil. What that means is they don't have a lot of visual acuity like you or I do, or like a hawk does. They essentially have 20/60 vision. What that means is something that you or I could see very clearly at 60 feet, a deer would have to be 20 feet away to see it with that same acuity. So what they give up with that visual acuity is really good movement detection. And essentially that's what she is doing here. She is bobbing that head, trying to get another vision of exactly what she saw there, what that movement was, to be able to detect, is this a predator, yes or no? So she knows whether she needs to flee the area or is safe to go ahead and feed somewhere nearby. Let's talk a little more about deer senses. We just mentioned vision and how they can use vision to stay alive. Ears are obviously very important, but you know what? We actually hear very similar to the way deer do. So their hearing is close to ours. But by far, the best sense they have for staying alive is their sense of smell. Take a look at what this doe is doing right now. She just caught the wind to something that this is not right, or maybe I'm not sure if it's right, but she clearly caught something different. So they have a lot more sensory cells than we do relative to how they can smell. Nobody knows exactly how many times better they can detect scent than us. We just know that it is a lot. Many people look at the end of a deer, that little black thing on the end of the nose, and reference that as the nose, but really their nose runs from that all the way up that long face into their brain with just literally thousands and thousands of cells so that they can detect scent at such minute details. Far better than we can. So of all the senses, sense of smell is by far what they use the most. It's how they detect predators. It's how they find food. They're not finding it with their eyes. They're finding it with their nose. It's what they use more than anything else to stay alive. This next behavior involves a verbal cue. Great footage here of this bachelor group of bucks. We talked about this earlier, how they get together during the summer. But watch how they watch out for each other. This guy in the back was feeding. These other deer here are alert, so their heads are up. They are looking at something. Somebody has either smelled something or seen something. They're not exactly sure what it is yet, but they're on alert to watch and see, hey, is this something that we need to flee from or in danger or not? So they're still looking. They're watching around. Hear that? That's a blow or a snort. Verbal cue. One deer is letting others know, okay, I have seen something or smelled something I don't like. I'm signaling this to you. Let's get out of Dodge. This young buck's on the move because fawns that survive to the first birthday are next faced with dispersal. We know that for bucks, 50 to 70% are forced from the birth area by their mothers when they're 12 to 18 months old. Does disperse too, but at a much reduced rate. Most of these bucks are going to disperse 1 to 5 miles from where they were born, and about 25% of them will disperse in the spring at fawning, while 75% will disperse in the fall during the rut. Some research suggests that yearling bucks won't disperse if they're orphaned, and some research also suggests that roads alter dispersal distance and direction. There's research from the University of Georgia showed a radio collared, a 3.5-year-old buck that only crossed a 2-lane road bordering his home range a few times over a 5-month period from June through October. These next couple of clips show how deer behavior can change across the seasons. Look at this summer, this fawn is loving life, it's playful, it's having a good time. This is the only time of their life that happens. Most of the time, and particularly after they become that year-old, they spend far more time being very alert because they're great at survival. Take a look at this next clip, this deer. This is later in the year. Now we're probably at a time when maybe hunters have been in the woods or some predators have chased this around. Watch how the demeanor of this deer is very different from what we just saw during the summertime. Suddenly you see a little more of a stiff-legged walk, ears are up, this deer has clearly seen something or smelled something or is at least much more cautious. This is a lot more common behavior for deer, particularly as we get into the fall, and this is one of the reasons that because they spend so much time alert, they are such survivalists and have done a great job at surviving for literally approximately 4 million years. Deer are amazing in so many ways, so it's no wonder more hunters pursue whitetails than any other game species. Identifying deer behavior in the field is a lot of fun, so whether you hunt them with a bow, a rifle, or camera, this information can make you a more knowledgeable whitetail enthusiast. If you'd like additional resources on this topic, or you'd like to help ensure the future of wild deer, wildlife habitat, and hunting, join the National Deer Association today at deerassociation.com.
To learn more, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, or head over to www.deerassociation.com.